The challenge of impossibility. The Elenari were ancient by any cosmic standard. When humans were still figuring out fire, they had already built machines that could fold spacetime. When Earth's first civilizations rose, they had colonized thousands of worlds. By the time humans launched their first satellite, the Elenari had established themselves as the intellectual titans of the known universe, with a particular fondness for creating tests and trials that demonstrated the superiority of their analytical minds. Their most famous creation was the Void Maze, a challenge room that existed partially in 11-dimensional space, requiring participants to navigate pathways visible only to the mind's eye. The fastest completion time in its 3,000-year history was 22 hours and 17 minutes, achieved by a particularly gifted member of the crystalline Seri race. Most species representatives never finished at all, their minds breaking under the strain of perceiving realities that shouldn't exist. So when humanity finally achieved faster-than-light travel and applied to join the Galactic Alliance, the Elenari were unimpressed. Such a primitive species, still ruled by emotional outbursts and chaotic thinking, High Theorist Zulin remarked during the Alliance Admission Council. The Elenari's slender form towered over the human representatives, his silver skin refracting the light in hypnotic patterns. 4 eyes, arranged in a diamond pattern, blinked with synchronized disdain. I find it difficult to believe they have achieved the minimum technological requirements for admission. Admiral Helena Chen, head of the Earth Interstellar Fleet and leader of the human delegation, felt her jaw tighten but kept her diplomatic smile in place. 6 months of negotiations, and still the Elenari treated humans like children who had wandered into an adult conversation. "We've provided extensive documentation of our technological achievements," she said calmly. "Our warp drive may be different from the standard Alliance model, but it functions within the same parameters." "Different," Zulin repeated, drawing out the word like it was distasteful. "Yes, that seems to be humanity's speciality. Imprecise methods that somehow achieve results through brute force and luck rather than proper theoretical frameworks." The other council members, representatives from 12 of the oldest spacefaring species, shifted uncomfortably. While many shared the Elenari's skepticism about humanity, few were willing to be so openly dismissive. "Perhaps," said Representative Klar of the Mantodian Collective, her insectoid mandibles clicking thoughtfully, "we should offer our human friends an opportunity to demonstrate their capabilities directly, rather than debating documentation." Zulin's upper right eye twitched, a sign of interest among the Elenari. "What do you propose?" "The Void Maze," Klar said simply. A murmur went through the council chamber. Even Zulin seemed taken aback. "That would be excessive," said Ambassador Trell of the Gaseous Forgians, his cloudy form pulsing with concern. "Many advanced species have suffered psychological trauma attempting the Void Maze. To subject a newly spacefaring race to such a challenge seems unnecessarily harsh." Admiral Chen raised her hand. "What exactly is this Void Maze?" The explanation left most of the human delegation pale-faced. A room that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously, requiring the participant to solve constantly shifting puzzles while perceiving 11-dimensional space. It sounded impossible. "I volunteer," a voice said from the back of the human group. All eyes turned to a woman who had been quietly observing from the third row of the delegation's seating area. Dr. Sarah Keller was not supposed to speak during these proceedings. As the mission's theoretical physicist, she was there to advise Admiral Chen on technical matters, not engage directly with the council. At 42, Sarah bore the intense focus of someone who spent more time with equations than people. Her dark hair was streaked with premature gray, pulled back in a functional ponytail. What most beings noticed about her, however, were her eyes, mismatched in color, one brown and one green, both with an unsettling intensity. "Dr. Keller," Admiral Chen said in a warning tone. Sarah stood. "I apologize for speaking out of turn, Admiral, but I believe I'm qualified for this challenge. My work in dimensional theory is groundbreaking but completely theoretical," Chen finished. You've never encountered actual multi-dimensional space. Neither has anyone else from Earth, Sarah pointed out. But I've spent 20 years imagining how such spaces would function. I've developed mathematical models that— This is not a theoretical exercise, Zulin interrupted, studying Sarah with all four eyes now. The void maze affects participants physically and mentally. Species with far more advanced brains than humans have emerged with permanent damage. Sarah met the alien's gaze steadily. Then what better way to determine if humans are ready to join your alliance? If we're as primitive as you believe, I'll fail and you can justify denying our application. If I succeed, she shrugged, then perhaps we deserve reconsideration. Admiral Chen looked ready to object again, but Representative Clark spoke first. I find the human's logic sound, she said, mandibles clicking in what might have been amusement, and refreshingly direct. After a long moment, Zulin nodded. Very well. The human Sarah Keller will attempt the void maze. The standard time limit is 24 Earth hours, though as mentioned, the record stands at just over 22 hours. If you have not emerged by then, emergency protocols will extract you. Though I must warn that forced extraction often results in cognitive complications. Sarah nodded, ignoring Admiral Chen's concerned expression. When do we start? The Void Maze facility was located on a small moon orbiting the gas giant that housed the Alliance headquarters. From the outside, it appeared as a simple white dome, about 30 meters across, with a single entrance. As the shuttle carrying the human delegation and several council members approached, Sarah pressed her forehead against the viewport, studying the structure with obvious fascination. It doesn't look like much, she murmured. The external dimensions are irrelevant, Zulin said from his seat across the shuttle's cabin. The interior space functions according to different physical laws. Sarah nodded absently, already lost in thought. Admiral Chen took the seat beside her, speaking in a low voice. You don't have to do this, Sarah. We can find another way to prove ourselves. In 6 months of negotiations, have we made any real progress? Sarah asked without looking away from the viewport. Chen sighed, not significantly. Then we need something dramatic. Something they can't dismiss. Sarah finally turned to face her superior. This is what I've been preparing for my entire career, Helena. I just didn't know it. Chen studied her for a moment. Your theories about non-Euclidean space have always been controversial, even among our top physicists. A small smile tugged at Sarah's lips. You mean they think I'm crazy? I wouldn't put it that way. They would. But think about it. We're about to enter a facility that exists in 11 dimensions. Maybe my crazy is exactly what we need right now. Before Chen could respond, the shuttle docked with a gentle thud. Zulin rose, his silver form flowing gracefully despite the confined space. We have arrived. Dr. Keller, you will be permitted 15 minutes to prepare. We will observe from the monitoring chamber. The monitoring chamber turned out to be a circular room surrounding what appeared to be a simple white door, the entrance to the void maze. One wall was covered in displays showing incomprehensible diagrams and readings. Several council members were already present, watching with varying degrees of interest as Sarah was given a brief orientation. The void maze reconfigures itself for each participant, explained elinary scientist Nilith, Zulin's assistant. It scans your brain patterns and creates challenges specifically tailored to test your cognitive limits. Sarah nodded, removing her jacket and handing it to Admiral Chen. She wore a simple black t-shirt and pants, with comfortable boots. Any advice? She asked Nilith. The elinary scientist seemed surprised by the question. No one has ever asked for advice before. The challenge is meant to be faced individually, according to one's own capabilities. Fair enough, Sarah said with a shrug. She looked around at the assembled aliens, then to Admiral Chen, and the few human delegates permitted to observe. Well, I guess I'll see you in 24 hours, or sooner, if I'm lucky. Zulin made a sound that might have been a scoff. The current record holder spent 4 years preparing specifically for the void maze. Your confidence is misplaced. Sarah just smiled. We'll see. With that, she approached the white door. It slid open silently, revealing nothing but white light beyond. Without hesitation, Sarah stepped through. The door closed behind her with a soft hiss. On the monitoring displays, readings immediately began to fluctuate. Zulin and Nilith moved to the control panel, studying the data with intense focus. Interesting, Nilith murmured. Her brain activity is unusual. In what way? Admiral Chen asked, moving closer despite the disapproving look from Zulin. Most participants show extreme stress responses immediately upon entry, Nilith explained, pointing to a wave-like pattern on one of the displays. The sudden perception of 11 dimensions typically overwhelms the sensory cortex. Dr. Keller's readings show elevated activity, but it's measured, almost as if she's seen this before. Zulin finished. All 4 eyes narrowed in concentration. Inside the void maze, Sarah Keller stood perfectly still, eyes closed, breathing deeply. When she finally opened them, she saw not chaos but patterns. Beautiful, complex, impossible patterns that somehow made perfect sense to her mind. She smiled. "Hello," she whispered to the void. "I've been waiting my whole life to meet you." And with that, she took her first step into the impossible. The human solution. In the observation chamber, tension mounted as the hours passed. The alien representatives watched the monitors with increasing disbelief, while Admiral Chen and her staff maintained professional expressions despite their growing excitement. "This cannot be accurate," Zulin insisted, checking the void maze's diagnostic systems for the 3rd time. No participant has ever navigated the crystalline junction this efficiently. The displays showed Sarah Keller's progress through the void maze as abstract representations, light patterns indicating her path through the 11-dimensional space. According to those patterns, she had already completed sections that typically took participants several hours to solve. Her approach is unconventional, Nilith observed, head tilted in fascination. Look at how she's navigating the probability matrices. It's almost as if she's ignoring the intended pathways entirely. Inside the void maze, Sarah moved with growing confidence. The initial shock of perceiving multiple dimensions simultaneously had quickly given way to a sense of familiarity. The space around her constantly shifted and reconfigured itself. Pathways appeared and disappeared. Geometric shapes, folded through dimensions he couldn't name yet, instinctively understood. For Sarah, it felt like coming home. As a child, she had always seen the world differently. Diagnosed with a rare form of synesthesia, she perceived mathematical concepts as physical sensations and visual patterns. Her parents, both accountants with firmly practical minds, had been baffled by their daughter, who would cry when shown certain number sequences because they felt wrong, or who would spend hours arranging objects in patterns only she understood. School had been a special kind of torture. Her teachers either thought she was being deliberately difficult or tried to label her with various learning disabilities. It wasn't until a visiting professor from MIT had noticed her doodling complex fractal patterns during a high school assembly that someone finally recognized her unique gift. Now, as she navigated the void maze, Sarah realized that her lifelong disorder had been preparing her for exactly this moment. Where others would see chaos, she saw patterns. Where normal human perception would fail, her unusual brain found pathways. She approached what the Elinari called the crystalline junction, a nexus where multiple dimensional planes intersected. The challenge was designed to force participants to methodically test each potential pathway, a process that typically took hours. Sarah stood in the center of the junction, eyes half closed, feeling the dimensional currents around her. Then she did something no previous participant had attempted. She moved through 3 pathways simultaneously. In the observation chamber, alarms sounded. "What's happening?" Admiral Chen demanded, watching as the monitoring displays flashed with warnings. Nilith's fingers flew over the control panel. She's attempting to exist in multiple probability states at once. This shouldn't be possible. Is she in danger? Chen pressed. Nilith looked to Zulin, who was staring at the displays with all four eyes widened in shock. We don't know. No one has ever attempted this approach. Inside the void maze, Sarah felt her consciousness split and merge repeatedly as she tested multiple solutions simultaneously. It was disorienting, even painful, but also exhilarating. Through the dizzying cascade of perceptions, she maintained focus on a core mathematical principle she had developed years ago, what she called probability bundling. Her doctoral thesis on the subject had been rejected by 3 universities before a small private research institution had taken a chance on her. Even then, most of the scientific community dismissed her work as interesting but impractical theoretical mathematics. Now she was putting it into practice in a way she had only dreamed possible. Sarah moved through the crystalline junction in minutes rather than hours, her consciousness reintegrating as she emerged on the other side. She paused, taking deep breaths to steady herself before moving on to the next challenge. In the observation chamber, the assembled aliens had fallen into stunned silence. 4 hours and 17 minutes, Nilith announced, checking the chronometer. She's progressed further than any participant has in triple that time. It must be a malfunction, Zulin insisted, though with less conviction than before. Representative Klar clicked her mandibles thoughtfully. Or perhaps we have underestimated these humans. The next section of the void maze presented a different type of challenge. Temporal distortions that created causal loops. Most participants found this section particularly difficult, as it required thinking beyond normal cause and effect relationships. Sarah, however, had spent 3 years working on temporal mechanics during her postdoctoral research. While Earth scientists had no practical way to manipulate time, the theoretical frameworks were well established. She recognized the patterns immediately. Nested causal loops, she murmured to herself, with quantum uncertainty factors at each junction point. Rather than fighting against the temporal distortions, Sarah worked with them, using their own momentum to propel herself through the section. Where others would carefully map each causal relationship before proceeding, she intuitively grasped the underlying pattern and navigated through it with fluid efficiency. In the observation chamber, Nilith was now recording everything Sarah did, her scientific curiosity overcoming her initial skepticism. Her approach suggests an intuitive understanding of temporal mechanics that should be impossible for her species' development level, she told the increasingly interested council members. It's as if she's not following rules because she doesn't know they exist, finished Ambassador Trell, his gaseous form pulsing with what might have been excitement. 7 hours into the challenge, Sarah reached the final section, the conceptual void. This was where most participants either gave up or required their full remaining time to complete. The void required navigating pure conceptual space, where even the illusion of physical reality fell away. In the observation chamber, Admiral Chen noticed the alien representatives growing increasingly agitated as they watched Sarah's progress.